Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries. In the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio. Today, we have a very special episode for you because the deep state is in a huge rout, the globalists are in a rout, and transgender rat monkeys make their debut on Patriot Radio. And no, this is not hyperbole. Although they're transgender rats and then transgender monkeys, they're not necessarily mixed together. We don't know. We got to ask that question. What you're seeing is an exposing of evil like we have never seen before in the United States of America. And it's about time. And we're only 3 weeks post-inauguration. And J.D. Vance really, I think, said it well, where he said they're running at a breakneck pace and they're going to keep this up for 4 years. The Democrat outrage machine cannot catch up with what President Trump is doing right now. It's incredible. The things that just came out today, they shouldn't surprise you, but they should tell you that what is happening is righteousness being restored to the land. And when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. I think people are seeing the level of corruption that some of us knew truly was there, the depth of it. And now it's being dealt with appropriately. So here at Patriot Radio, if you want to keep up with the latest, and I mean, 50 news articles easily every 6 hours, easily. But you don't have to scroll through everything to do it. We do it for you. Please follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram. For real-time intelligence updates and an analysis and breaking news. We have an aggregate of hundreds of different sources that we pull from. One of them today is actually a local source, but it impacts the entire nation because while the globalists are en route, now the Marxists are bringing violence into the church. And so everybody that's a part of a church network here in the Pacific Northwest or beyond, in a church network in your community, need to let your pastors know about this, need to let your priests know about this, because we talked about this about 8 months ago, that they were going to begin targeting Christian leaders and Christian property. That is beginning in earnest. There are flashpoints over immigration, but really they're not even discriminating. They're just going after Christians and they're going after patriots because they think that they are running out of time. And they are running out of time. They know what's coming. And no judge with a temporary hold is going to be able to stop the exposing of the evil and the routing out of the evil here in the United States. So as we go through this episode, take notes, share it with your friends and family. The receipts are what's most important because some people are saying, oh, it's just not true. We got the receipts. Now, but you have to understand the way that some of the funds have been hidden when we get into USAID today. The way that some of the contributions flow through donor-advised funds or DAFs. And then they go to one organization, then go to another organization, go to another organization. And so what the Democrats and what some of these Marxists try to claim is, oh, we didn't get it from that. Yeah, you did indirectly, and it's very clear that that's the flow through. So the question should not be, do we root out corruption? The question is, why are you trying to defend it? As I go through some of these things, this might be a little bit overwhelming to some people. And what's happening might be a little bit overwhelming to some people. And maybe you need prayer. And if that's you, you can always forward us a prayer request at patriotradio.us/prayer. We would love to journey with you. And you may have questions about certain things. I was talking to somebody the other day about, what was really happening with the Department of Government Efficiency and firing all of these people. And you may have questions about what's kind of really behind this. And we would love to pray with you about that, lift it up to the Lord, but also explain some of the realities that are happening right now in the United States. And the reality that is happening is that evil is being exposed, and these huge networks of Marxists that have been entrenched in the bureaucracy over the last 50 years are being rooted out. And I remember when I first came into the political sphere in Washington State, somebody asked me a question, what would you do about government? I said I would reduce it by 50%, and it wouldn't touch any of the benefits on the ground. It's the multiple layers of mid and upper level management, but it's also the funneling of money to NGOs that is really costing taxpayers so much money. And what's going to happen is Trump is going to get to a place where they have saved $1 trillion, and then he's going to say, why do we need an income tax? We just provided the efficiencies to get rid of it. And he is right. Roughly, the income tax pays for the interest on our national debt, roughly. Again, roughly. Don't sit there and try and, you see, with the roughly. But why do we have a national debt if really the issue is efficiency and reducing the size of government on a massive scale? We were supposed to have a limited government. And if you ever read the preamble to the Bill of Rights, I'm not talking about the Bill of Rights, there was actually a preamble written to it. The 10th Amendment was very clear on the limitations of government. What's happened over the years is bureaucrats have continued to extend their power and excuse the extension of their power again and again and again and again until they are operating in an ultra vires manner, to use a legal term, outside of the scope of their original enablement legislation. Some of them were never voted on by Congress. They were just implemented by executive order. And Trump is undoing that today. So if you really want freedom, if you call yourself a Christian, then you should understand that Marxism, socialism is evil. It was born out of evil. You can read Karl Marx's poetry before he wrote the Communist Manifesto, and very clearly he states his moral compass, and it is evil. Socialism and the centralization of power is evil. And we can actually read about that in the scripture, which brings us to your wisdom from the word for today, out of Isaiah chapter 5. Now, you could start at the top, and it talks about the centralization of property under one owner, and that was looked upon as evil. Then it continues, and we're actually going to skip down to verse 18, and it continues with this: woe to those who drag wrongdoing with the cords of deceit. In other words, they try to keep wrongdoing going by deceiving people, and sin as if with cart ropes, who say, let him hurry, let him do his work quickly so that he may see it, and let the plan of the Holy One of Israel approach and come to pass so that we may know it. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight. Woe to those who are heroes in drinking wine and valiant men in mixing intoxicating drink, who declare the wicked innocent for a bribe and take away the rights of the ones who are in the right. Wow, what a powerful scripture in Isaiah. Quite literally, the government was funding, taking away one of our most precious and God-given unalienable rights, freedom of speech. We're attempting to take it away. Funding, the taking away, the censorship of freedom of speech. And those people, including yours truly, who were in the right, this scripture applies to. This is wickedness of the highest order. To use our own taxpayer monies to try and destroy that which is good and right. And ultimately, and I want to say this very clearly, I've heard a little bit of this out there right now, but Marxism is a facade. There's nothing truly, really behind it, and there's never truly a lot of support for it. And so they always try to make themselves look like there is a lot more popular support than there actually is. And so once you break through the veneer of Marxism, communism, socialism, once you break through the veneer, you understand that it's just simply a house of cards that can do nothing but fall. And that's what we're seeing right now. They made it look like it was popular opinion for this or that or this or that. And many Americans are like, that's not our heart. It's not my heart. How can it be possible that so many people believe this? Well, it ended up that it was actually all funded by our own money. And then on the other side, censorship kept people from speaking out about it and calling it out. And so when Elon Musk bought X, it loosed the speech that needed to be loosed and the exposing that needed to happen. And now, and I'm not saying Elon Musk is perfect, and now what we're seeing is the facade of the communists and the Marxists laid bare. We are seeing those who declare the wicked innocent for a bribe and take away the rights of the ones who are in the right held accountable for what they were doing. This is very important. General Patton understood this in World War II. He understood that there was nothing behind Zhukov's lines, that the Russians had thrown everything into the front against the Germans in World War II, and that there was nothing behind their lines, and that the Americans, if they wanted to avoid a Cold War, should go and pierce through the Russian lines and break the back of communism forever. And he was right. Because there is nothing behind these Marxists. They have to use our own money against us. And now that it's been exposed, as a Christian, where do you stand on this? Is this not nice? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Or is this really an expression of true love, setting people free? You know, people have been screaming about the deportations. I see people being set free. I see our economy being unburdened. I see our entrepreneurial spirit being unshackled. I see America stepping into a new age, an age of freedom, an age of liberty, and an age of prosperity. And I hope you do too. When we come back from the break, we're going to start your daily intelligence brief.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs, Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for US-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
Vladimir Putin will remain in office until 2036.
Putin is being called bold.
What's your strategy to bring them back to the Stone Age?
Daring. You won't be able to look away.
How can his kingdom last?
Putin. Rated R. In select theaters January 10th.
From Horizon Events comes a bold and daring new thriller, Putin, that tells the inside story of Vladimir Putin's rise to power and imagines how in the near future that rise could come to a shocking and very quick end. Putin is rated R and in select theaters on Friday. And that brings us to your daily intelligence brief. Coming to us from the Globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
So when we talk about the globalist agenda, we should talk about technocracy, or the idea that starts at first as social engineering and the science of social engineering, and then moves into a totalitarian economic system that seeks to micromanage, gaslight, scrutinize, and control every aspect of our daily lives. Now, technocracy was adopted by Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski in 1973 when they started the Trilateral Commission to subvert all of the global resources into the hands of a chosen few. Now, this was an extension of what some people know as the Blue Bloods back in the 1800s that were sent out west to control the resources of the Western United States. Everything from gold to timber to eventually the news and information. And so this is just an extension of the attempt by certain families to control, certain families to, well, be a mafia, really. I mean, it's just by a different name. It's gangsterism. So as we're witnessing AI rise, let's ask the important questions about what propaganda might be out there and how AI might be putting up search results in front of us that they want us to see and not search results that we're actually looking for. Because they're trying to manipulate our behavior by what is brought up in our searches as much as they are what pops up in our feeds. That's why on Instagram, if you're between a certain age, suddenly, and you're a man, suddenly there's women in various states of undress that come up in your Instagram homepage. Now, they're going to try to deny some of that, or they're going to say, well, you asked for it because you're looking at certain things. But the fact of the matter is there's far more manipulation of our behavior than people want to admit. And this started as something called activity-based intelligence, or the idea that a digital self could be created with a certain number of data points. There's probably over 12,000 now, or even bigger than that. Data points on every single human being so that they would, quote, know you better than you know yourself, end quote. And that they could then change your behavior based on certain stimulus that was introduced. Well, no thank you. That sounds like slavery, and in fact it is slavery. And if you don't behave a certain way, well, they take down a score. And you don't have access to certain benefits, certain rewards. We believe in freedom. We believe in being entrepreneurs. We believe in living out our calling and our purpose and our destiny as God has written for us. And you can't do that if AI is trying to do it for you. Also, Global Affairs Canada has suddenly wiped their entire public database of foreign aid spending, and the data is no longer available to the public. I wonder why that happened. Do you think maybe they had some information on there that led back to some of their Democrat friends? Or maybe some of their globalist handlers. J.D. Vance appropriately calls for urgent action to defend religious freedom. The top 20 countries where Christians are being persecuted in 2025. And some of this, again, is, some of it is like okay, what's really new to me? I mean, I know North Korea is going to be number one, Somalia is number two, Yemen, Libya. So jihadis and communists are at the top of the list and always have been at the top of the list. But did you know that India is one of the top persecutors of Christian? And maybe Donald Trump can, during negotiations, say to India, if we're going to become a trade partner because we're shifting away from China, maybe there could be some change in your policy toward Christians. Or how about saying to some of our Middle East partners regarding oil, there needs to be more freedom for Christians there, and also making it easier for Christians to immigrate to the United States. I mean, in a couple of cases, and I know personally, family members took 7 years to legally immigrate. Based on the way it's currently set up, could Christian refugees become a priority? I think the answer is yes, and should be what the Trump administration pursues. And that brings us now to the China front. Here's some video of the Philippine Navy shadowing the PLA Navy as things continue to, and the tensions continue to increase in the South China Sea. The Chinese are not just doing this above water, they're also doing it below water, and infiltrating submarines into the Philippine island chain has been documented recently. And so the Philippines will be likely investing in submarine technology, and New Zealand, Australia, the United States, Japan are becoming closer as a result of this. The Chinese are not going to stop. See, evil doesn't stop itself. And that's why good men, alpha male leadership is rising, because we know the threat that's coming. Philippines says it won't let China normalize illegal ship deployments in their exclusive economic zone. Chinese Coast Guard ships have stayed for a month in Manila's exclusive economic zone, including the Scarborough Shoal. And newly released videos like the one we just showed you show the attempts by China to push the envelope in that zone. But it's not just ships and not just submarines, it's also airplanes. So I want to show a visual of not just the Philippines, but also Taiwan. And then you can see down in the lower left-hand part of that picture toward the Philippines where Chinese ship activity has happened. And it's interesting that the Bao Shun showed up again near Taiwanese territory, and this ship was suspected of severing or damaging undersea cables about a month ago. So I expect this kind of gray zone warfare to continue, and not just severing undersea cables, but also the infiltration, the elite capture the Chinese have been doing with leaders in Pacific Island nations, including one surprising shift in the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands are set to strike a major partnership deal with China, causing deep concern in the New Zealand government. The move would be a big win for Beijing. And the Cook Islands has just celebrated 60 years of self-governance in free association with New Zealand. And so while it's free to do that, it seems that under a long-standing agreement, the nations must cooperate, this is New Zealand and the Cook Islands, and consult on any issues of defense and security, and they have to advise each other of any risks to either state. The Cook's lack of openness about its shift toward China is setting alarm bells ringing, and may very likely be, and probably is, a violation of that agreement. Which is why the Australian, Japanese, Philippines, and U.S. militaries conducted joint drills off the Philippines yesterday. They demonstrated a collective commitment to strengthening regional and international cooperation. This included naval drills and air drills, including bombers doing runs together. So as we have said many times, as this heats up, we're going to see a bloc forming there clearly against China. And if we are looking at this objectively, President Trump's tariff policy is trying to tip China's economy over an edge to stop it from being able to actually go to war by invading the Philippines. And that brings us now to the Middle East front. Benjamin Netanyahu giving one of the most based gifts to President Trump, a gold pager. Wow. It says press with both hands. Yeah. Their press conference the other day was amazing, and you could see Benjamin Netanyahu was absolutely overjoyed at the change in administration because Trump is taking the jihadi threat seriously and understands that Hamas can never really control the Gaza Strip again. And while that may raise alarm bells in the Middle East, it's accurately depicting that the purpose of the Muslim Brotherhood is the destruction of Israel. And people say, well, where do you get that? Well, it's been written by many of their leaders and verbalized by many of their leaders. So why don't we take them at their word? Well, President Trump is. Also, Muslims displaced over 4,000 Christians in villages and burn, torch homes, kill 5 people. Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous what they're doing. And this persecution of Christians has been going on for quite some time. And while I can look at this and it's kind of easy to kind of step back and say, oh, well, some Christians in Nigeria, they're having a hard time right now. I mean, we can't turn a blind eye to this. The fact of the matter is U.S. policy in the Middle East has led to less Christians being in those countries and persecution actually increasing in those countries and in other places like, Nigeria, Chad, countries where we were supposed to be bringing peace with our presence. Let's reevaluate our policies, Syria, and see if what we've been doing has been wrong all along. Also, Trump on Gaza. Trump confirms the U.S. will take over Gaza after fighting is over. No U.S. troops will be needed. No U.S. troops will be needed. Sounds like he's actually giving the green light to the Israelis to continue fighting if they need to. The Gaza Strip would be, these are Trump's words, quote, the Gaza Strip would be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of fighting. The Palestinians, people like Chuck Schumer, would have already been resettled in far safer and more beautiful communities with new and modern homes in the region. They would actually have a chance to be happy, safe, and free. The U.S., working with great development teams from all over the world, would slowly and carefully begin the construction of what would become one of the greatest and most spectacular developments of its kind on Earth. No soldiers by the U.S. would be needed. Stability for the region would reign, end quote. That sounds like a different shift in policy that we are leading by our businesses and our missionaries instead of by the point of a gun. And that brings us to the break. When we come back, more from the Russia front and some significant news there that might alter the course of the war, at least in the near term, and more on the national front regarding the exposing of corruption and what the Trump administration is doing about it.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
And now, the Russia front. Satellite imagery and geolocation and a whole bunch of Russian mill bloggers seem to be confirming that the Russian line has failed near Cherkasskaya and that several Russian towns, or formerly Russian towns, have been captured by the Ukrainian army just north of the Russia-Ukrainian border in the Kursk region. In addition to that, whatever Russian forces are doing in Russia's Kursk region tonight, and after Russians have lost 2 towns in the past 24 hours, Russian channels are freaking out about it. That is true. This might actually alter the course of the war in this sense that Russian forces would have to redeploy there and pull out of other regions because they have been able to advance in Donetsk. Obviously, this is positioning before negotiations begin to try to end this conflict. Earlier this week, Ukrainian attack drones successfully struck Gazprom's Astrakhan gas plant, a major Russian producer of refined fuel and the country's main producer of sulfur for explosives. The plant suffered a series of severe fires, reportedly knocking it offline for months. This is going to have a dramatic effect on Russian logistics as Ukrainian drone strikes continue to target not just oil refineries, but also manufacturing facilities and producers that ultimately end up making explosives. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that the Russian aerospace forces launched a new vehicle with a payload of unidentified military satellites from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in northeast Russia. This is a flex, obviously, by the Russians right now. And one thing, if you understand Soviet doctrine, you can this will make sense. Back in the era of Brezhnev and Andropov, the Soviets decided that they needed to have strategic forces that they spent a lot of money on, but not so much money on their actual ground forces. Just why their maintenance and some of the parts and logistics were and still are World War II era, and why their missile forces are always modernized. The Russians have always tried to keep that strategic deterrent, and this, with this launch of unidentified satellites, is in keeping with that strategy. That brings us now to the national front. President Trump, quote, billions have been stolen at USAID and other agencies. This could be the biggest scandal of them all. Democrats can't hide, end quote. And then he added, too big, too dirty, quote unquote. Perhaps he is signaling, fairly obviously, that there are more scandals to come, and they actually have decided how they're going to roll those scandals out, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, so that the communists in this country cannot really fight back. Their outrage machine cannot catch up. 9 out of 10 USAID dollars spent in 2022 went to contractors, mostly in where, you guessed it, Sawyer, the DC area. Less than 1 in 10 went to frontline groups. In other words, this was a way to transfer money to those with favor and influence. By the way, that came from WikiLeaks. Interestingly enough, according to a June 2023 report, nearly 9 out of 10 dollars that USAID spent in the 2022 fiscal year went to its international contracting partners, most of which are based in and around Washington, D.C. Just 1 out of 10 went to the frontline local groups. And maybe even less than that. USAID measures less than half of its total spending to evaluate how much funding flows to those local partners. So you want to know where your taxpayer money is going? Well, that's where it's going. USAID was funding over, wait for it, and by the way, I'm just going to take a step back. I wonder the connection between AP Politico, Range Magazine, and the Spokesman Review and Inlander? I wonder if there's a connection. Perhaps there should be an investigation into that, or maybe one has already been started and been going on for a few years, and that's about to break soon. We are seeing right now that this was nothing more than a facade of information. USAID was funding over 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media NGOs, including, wait for it, 9 out of 10 outlets in Ukraine. Quote, "We have a dishonest and crooked press, and you people should be ashamed of yourselves," end quote. Donald J. Trump, back in the day, by the way. When you have 6,000 journalists and 700 newsrooms receiving USAID money, we're going to let this video play for just a second. It could be that maybe they're saying the same thing. Yes, they are. I'm going to tell you what the doctrine here is. This comes from Mao's strategy called the United Front, where the same information is put out over a broad swath to make it look like it has legitimacy, repeated over and over and over again, like Donald Trump is a domestic terrorist, or yours truly is one, and they repeat it long enough through all of their outlets that happen to be interconnected and all paid for by our taxpayer money. Wow. I think that raises a lot of questions. Some of these narratives not only were not true, but they're part of a grander scheme to deceive the American people, to destabilize, demoralize this country, as Rich Higgins, a former strategic planner for the National Security Council, said before he passed away. Perhaps that's what's actually going on here. And that Mao's strategy was adopted by the left and used to great effect until it was exposed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just deemed that 294 USAID staffers are necessary out of 14,000. The biggest mass firing yet. Amen. Thomas Massie and Greg Steube introduced a bill to abolish the USAID, which has been sending billions of American taxpayer dollars overseas. We should watch very closely and very carefully which of our Congress people sign on to this bill. Check closely. The Social Security Administration has terminated its contract for Gender X Initiative marker and removed all references to gender ideology from public-facing applications. This saves $1 million. What? Can we get, I tell you what, can we get $1 million just so we can say the word patriot across stuff? All right. And I'm not being serious about that. Okay. Mike Benz, who's done a great job with analysis of these things. We should actually try to get him on the show Just curious, has a single foreign head of state called President Trump this week and said, no, please don't take our USAID money out of the country? No, why not? Because for most of them, USAID was funding the opposition. Wait till that starts to come out. All of the opposition groups are actually funded by USAID. I know it's being put together right now. Incredible. Total corruption. USAID secretly poured uncountable hundreds of millions of dollars toward Hamas, including tens of millions of cash they could never account for. Throughout the Biden administration, they knew the money they were pouring into Gaza would benefit Hamas, and yet they did it anyway. Ted Cruz. By the way, this explains why those tunnels, which would have taken hundreds of millions of dollars to construct, were so vast underneath Gaza. And perhaps one of the weirdest titles, but true, Representative Nancy Mace reveals millions of taxpayer dollars spent on shocking experiments to create transgender monkeys, rats, and more. Transgender rat monkeys with your taxpayer dollars, because apparently the taxpayer-funded animal cruelty proved a welcome break to the blow-ups in recent days and weeks of both parties. Mace, citing a report released late last year by the right-leaning animal welfare group called the White Coat Waste Project, exposed to the public some truly shocking and evil examples of animal abuse via DEI grants in the name of promoting trans ideology. The victims of these experiments were mice, rats, and monkeys. Well, listen to this. These grants funded deadly and painful transgender experiments that forced lab animals to undergo invasive surgeries and hormone therapies at universities across the country. $2.5 million taxpayer dollars to study the fertility of transgender mice. $1.1 million to determine whether female rats receiving testosterone therapies mimic transgender men. Taxpayer dollars used to forcibly transition male monkeys to see if hormone therapy made them more susceptible to HIV. Thank God the madness is ending. When we come back from the break, more on the national front and more on what USAID is spending your hard-earned taxpayer money on.
Behind the power.
Vladimir Putin will remain in office until 2036.
Beneath the secrecy.
You'll be the most powerful man in the world.
Is the real story that defies reality. Putin is being called bold.
What's your strategy to bring them back to the Stone Age?
Chilling. You won't be able to look away.
How can his kingdom last?
Putin. Rated R. In select theaters January 10th.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's feeling like more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with the National Front. And I would like you to hear the transgender rat monkey video for yourself. Go ahead and roll the clip.
I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Good afternoon. Late last year, the White Coat Waste Project exposed more than $10 million in taxpayer funds that were spent creating transgender mice, rats, and monkeys. These DEI grants funded painful and deadly transgender experiments that forced lab animals to undergo invasive surgeries and hormone therapies at universities across the country.
Look at the guy sitting behind her. He's like, is this for real?
Administration spent $2.5 million taxpayer dollars, 2.5 million taxpayer dollars to study the fertility of transgender mice. Let that sink in. We spent over $2 million studying the fertility of transgender mice. $1.1 million was spent to find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapies to mimic transgender men were more likely to overdose on a party drug, commonly used in the LGBTQ community to induce drug-fueled what's called, quote, chemsex. I asked my staff what was chemsex and the chemical, and I guess it's something called GHB, which is a date rape drug, and also a drug that's used recreationally.
So I want everybody to hear this because this is real. This is how disturbing, perverse, unreal, to be candid, this whole discussion is. But wait, there's more.
Dollars to find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapy were more likely to overdose on a date rape drug. Like, that's what your taxpayer dollars were being spent on. Federal funds were also used to forcibly transition male monkeys to see if hormone therapy made them more susceptible to HIV. Now,
I think that's probably enough. I'm, you know, and it goes on. It goes on. And there's even more. Lance Wallnow posted about how everything was funneled down to, wait for it, does that say Bill and Hillary and, does that say Chelsea Clinton? It does. 84 million, apparently, according to some of these folks that are tracking the data right now. Individuals affiliated with the Department of Government Efficiency have reportedly been given access to several internal databases and systems at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as they search for employees and programs related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. NOAA officials claim to have been told to expect up to a 50% reduction in staff as well as a 30% reduction in budget as the Trump administration continues to pursue cost-cutting opportunities. Looks like NOAA is next on the chopping block. Now, this is an important point. It's important to understand that funding is fungible, meaning USAID dollars don't directly flow into NGOs in a literal sense. Instead, it moves through multiple layers. Now, I was talking about this at the beginning of the show, including through donor-advised funds. The way you get around that is by using a principal officer search when you do your USAID tracking. So for those of you that are helping out with this project, this is one quick way. And also for everybody that's getting the information, understanding what's happening, it's indirect funding because it's been flowing through multiple layers. It doesn't mean that it's not going from one point to another point. And so as the Democrats try to wiggle out of this, they're trying to say, well, so-and-so didn't give us any money yet. But it went through two layers and ended up in your pocket. U.S. government spending record shows Soros-backed Institute received more than $260 million in grants from USAID. And also Pfizer, one of the top USAID contracts in 2024. Actually, it was number 2, explaining quite a bit. Today, 78 contracts were terminated for convenience across DEI, non-performing media and consulting categories, including one for groundwater exploration and assessment in the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. $110 million savings. I mean, what's that among friends? We don't have any idea how much. I mean, half of that is what's needed for North Carolina. We don't have any idea how much money has been wasted. I mean, we're throwing around numbers now, 110 million here, 53 million here. I mean, this adds up to billions of dollars and then ultimately trillions of dollars very, very quickly. In addition to that, USAID paid Hollywood stars to travel to Ukraine to get pictures with President Zelensky. Van Damme. Probably not going to watch those movies anymore. Ben Stiller. Sean Penn. Orlando Bloom. Oh, that's so sad. Wasn't he in Lord of the Rings, Sawyer? I think so. And Megan, check it out. Angelina Jolie. $20 million to go take a picture. I wonder if all that could have helped people have a meal and maybe a roof over their head in North Carolina. And this one that really got a lot of pastors in a stir here over the last 24 hours. Christianity Today is funded $1.8 million by USAID, $5 million by the Lilly Endowment or Big Pharma, of course. They're, quote, never Trumpers, pro-vaccines, and anti-Trump and anti-nationalists, end quote. Lance Wall now bringing up a very, very good point. I want everybody to look at that. Some of our own Christian media sources perhaps didn't have Christianity or our best interests, in fact, in mind. USAID funneled $27 million to Black Lives Matter through the Tides Foundation, reposted by Zero Hedge. I want to see an investigation into this to see if this is actually accurate, and if so, how much, and if this is just if this is a floor level. I mean, the implications of this would be massive, that our own taxpayer monies went to fund the ravaging of our own cities. Incredible. Protesters against ICE are forming today across California. Yes, as we predicted, there would be flashpoints over immigration over the next 90 days, and that is indeed starting to happen. Interesting, they have the Mexican flag as they're marching and not the United States flag. Well, fantastic. You're saying where you want to go, go. What is the issue with this? I don't understand this unless there's an attempt to destabilize the United States of America. Lara Logan posting about Jeremy Brown. We've mentioned him on the show before, a famous J6er who turned down an offer to become, well, confidential informant for the government. Jeremy Brown has been pardoned by the president. Why is he still in jail? Rotting in a transition pod in a prison in Atlanta? Great question. We're not going to let this thing die. We're going to keep talking about this until Jeremy Brown is free. In the bowels of J. Edgar Hoover headquarters, the FBI is defying the president. Personnel ignore show up for work orders, saying their stay-at-home telework is not prohibited, remote work. They're also poring over DOJ guidance to find loopholes to circumvent presidential intent. From J. Michael Waller. Now, we're going to have him on the show here coming up soon, but this makes it clear that Kash Patel's confirmation should be a top priority, as the FBI is one of the next things that needs to be cleaned out. Former FBI director, Society of Former Agents, and FBI AA didn't lift a finger for any whistleblowers who lost their careers. And according to Steve Friend, his phone is blowing up with agents suggesting that they're, quote, vindicated years after it mattered. I think Kash Patel has to go into the investigations of whistleblowers, not just President Trump. The FBI just provided President Trump's Justice Department the name of 5,000 agents and officials who worked on the January 6 cases. Oh, wow. Doesn't look like they're going to fire them all, and it looks like they may keep some people who were, quote, just following orders. I don't know about that. I think there needs to be a deeper investigation. As of today, the FBI Experience Tour, open to the public through congressional offices, is still full of DEI themes. Again, another reason Kash Patel needs to be confirmed quickly. Also, Department of Government Efficiency officials were spotted at FBI headquarters. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Looks like that's the next target. SEC is scaling back crypto enforcement unit, according to the New York Times. And DHS official was caught on tape bragging about defying Trump's appointees. We're going to see more of this, and as they're exposed, they will be fired. And they probably should be investigated across a bunch of broad spectrums. But President Trump has been bringing God up in several recent statements. And one of them, really kind of poignant, is where President Trump said that we need more of God in our lives. And amen to that. Also, President Trump has taken the gloves off and ordered the GSA to cancel every single media contract. It'd be interesting to see if there's some other media outlets that won't be able to make their payrolls. There's been a run on gold worldwide. We're going to be talking about that with some guests later next week. Why is there a run on gold and why is China a part of it? And last but not least, I want to make sure I get this in. There has been an incursion into a church right here in Spokane, Washington. Let's go ahead and roll that video. And if you aren't offended by that, you should be, because they're going to try to do this more and more. So church security teams, take note of what we're about to play. Go ahead.
O loving mother of us all, you know our wants, our troubles.
This is a prayer meeting, and this person charged the priest, hit him.
It's all right, just calm down. It's okay, buddy. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
They should never have gotten that close. Church security should not have let them get that close. Just saying. But this happened inside a church here in Spokane. We are trying to get more details on the incident. A prayer meeting disrupted by Marxists. And we just pray that there is not more of this in the future. Wow. Pretty incredible. Also, as we leave today, some quick breaking news. And I've seen quite a bit on this recently, but now it's official. So, as Trump banned transgender athletes or men competing in women's sports, the NCAA has now banned transgender athletes as of the broadcast today. That is a huge win for female athletes. So what can you do? I'm telling you, take this episode and share it. This is one of the biggest episodes that we have done. We've gone through a ton over the last hour. Please share this with your friends and family. Get the facts on the table for them so they can be informed and understand that this isn't mean what Trump is doing. This is actually an expression of love to realign the United States with our core values. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Praise God. Keep up the fight.